term, but applying it to something. If you have a polynomial whose coefficients are real numbers, so no i's in a polynomial, if you have one imaginary zero, then the conjugate also works. And this is all still on that handout that I gave you, the notes handout. But it tells you if your coefficients are real numbers, the imaginary zeros come in pairs. You have, so if I said 4 minus 2i was a 0, then you automatically know that 4 plus 2i is as well. The conjugate, you only change the sign on the imaginary portion. The real portion stays the same. So that is the last little missing piece of our puzzle. And now we're ready to do some more problems. Okay, so yesterday we did some where we had to write polynomials. So let's say I gave you this one. If these are my zeros, I said my coefficients are real. If negative 4 is a 0, and 3 minus I is a 0, are there any other zeros in this? What would be the other one? If you have an imaginary, you also have its conjugate. So this one would actually have 3 pieces when I go to write my polynomial. So if negative 4 is a 0, what goes in the polynomial? X plus 4. Okay, if 3 minus I is a 0, you have to do x minus each piece. So it would become x minus 3 plus I. And if 3 plus I is a 0, that's x minus 3 minus I. You guys know how we got that? So I may not list all the imaginary zeros. If I give you one, you know the conjugate also works. I want you to go ahead and separate them. I mean, that's really what it is, but for writing polynomial purposes, I prefer you separate them. Yeah, that's it. I just asked for the polynomial. Now, if you multiplied this all out, your i's would cancel and you'd have a beautiful polynomial, but I don't really think that's worth our time. You guys, we've done multiplication before. You've shown me that you can multiply these. At this point, I'm not worried about that part. All right, let's do this one. Why don't you guys write that one? Zeros. 2 minus I. What if I just said, like, I was a 0? What else would have to be? Negative I. What?
You're a 0? You said what if I was 0?
Funny. Funny. Took me a second. A little slow today. All right. So what are my factors?
X minus 3, x minus 2 plus I.
Does it matter what order you have this?
No.
No, as long as you have all three. Okay. Is that stuff good? Last 2 problems of the day. So, I am giving you the first 0 of this polynomial. Now, if I hadn't given you a 0, how would you find a starting point? P's and Q's, possible zeros. The possible zeros only give you the real zeros. So you'll probably end up with something that you had to do the quadratic formula on at the end. That would be about the only way to get it. However, I told you 2i is a 0. So what do we have to do? Synthetic. Okay. Leave yourself plenty of space here. I'm going to space out my coefficients. So I've got 1, negative 4, 4, and negative 6. So 1 comes down. 1 times 2i is 2i. Can you add negative 4 and 2i? No. So that's just going to stay negative 4 plus 2i. So when I distribute, 2i times negative 4 would be negative 8i. 2i times 2i is 4i squared, negative 4. When you add those, the 4's drop, so we get negative 8i. Negative 8i times 2i is negative 16i squared, 16. Okay, at this point, would you be able to do box method with all those i's? No. But what could 2i was a 0. What else has to be a 0? Let's do synthetic again with negative 2i. Okay, so that 0 was just a remainder, so you leave that part off when you do this next synthetic. So then, my 1 comes down. 1 times negative 2i is negative 2i. Add those and we get negative 4. Negative 4 times negative 2i is positive 8i. We get 0. So we are left with x minus 4. My directions were to find the remaining zeros.
Wait, how did you just get x minus 4?
Okay.
Oh, never mind, I got you. That was just the concept.
Yeah. Okay, so originally I gave you the 2i for a 0. So the other zeros were negative 2i, and what would make x minus 4 0?
4.
So originally we had x cubed, which means 3 zeros, and we got 3. They gave you the first one, and we found the other 2.
How do you know when you have to do 2 equations? Because all the i's are gonna.
Yeah, if you do synthetic and you have a bunch of i's left, then
Then just-
try to do synthetic again.
With the negative.
With the conjugate, yeah. Other questions? Last one. So, 3 minus 2i is a 0. What is the first step?
Yeah.
Synthetic. 3 minus 2i. Do our coefficients. This one's gonna be pretty. Okay. So 1 comes down. 1 times 3 minus 2i is 3 minus 2i. Add like terms. Negative 9 plus 3 is negative 6 minus 2i. What do we have to do now? Wait. We have 3 minus 2i times negative 6 minus 2i. So when I FOIL that, I get negative 18 minus 6i plus 12i plus 4i squared. 4i squared would turn into, so negative 18 and negative 4, negative 22. Negative 6i and 12i is 6i. So then we add 22 and negative 22 and positive 21, negative 1 plus 6i. So now we're going to FOIL again. We have to do 3 minus 2i times negative 1 plus 6i. Negative 3 plus 18i plus 2i minus 12i squared. Negative 12i squared would turn into positive 12 plus negative 3, give me a 9, 18i and 2i. So then we add, 21 plus 9 is 30, plus 20i. So final multiplication, 3 minus 2i times 30 plus 20i. 3 times 30 would be 90, plus 60i minus 60i minus 40i squared. Negative 40i squared would turn into 40, plus 90 is 130, and my 60i's drop when we get 0. Alright, that was fun. We gotta do it again. Okay.
I don't have too long.
This one won't be as ugly, I promise.
I gotta go read.
Are we gonna do anything in the assignment box?
No. So what am I going to divide by this time? So my coefficients come down. So 1 comes down. 1 times 3 plus 2i is 3 plus 2i. When you add those, the i's drop, and you just get -3. So now distribute. -3 times 3 would be -9. -3 times 2i is -6i. Those drop and we get -10. -10 times 3 is -30. -10 times 2i is -20i. Add and you get 0. So that's x squared minus 3x minus 10. Can we factor that? Cox method. Two numbers multiply -10, add to -3. The question was the remaining zeros. We were given 3 minus 2i. We knew 3 plus 2i worked. What would make x minus 5 equal 0? And x plus 2? So I gave you the first one, you found 3 more. It was originally x to the 4th, so it all adds up. We're done. All right. Any questions here?
What's wrong with you? I hate doing all that work. That's awful. It was a tragedy.
Oh, whatever. You're fine. Okay, the assignment is on that last slide there. Add it to yesterday's work, and we'll turn it all in tomorrow before the quiz. So it's like 7 total problems that I'm adding.
But is this day 2 or day 3?
This